I never thought I'd end up wrestling a tow truck driver in the middle of my own cornfield. Both of us covered head to toe in mud, all because an HOA president in a pink Range Rover decided my land was her shortcut. She laughed at my no trespassing signs, ignored every warning, and called me crazy when I told her to stop. But the day she sank that shiny car into my field of black Iowa mud, that was the day everything changed. My name's Hank Jordan. I'm a farmer born and raised on the same dirt I work today. My wife, Pam, and I live right next to a new subdivision called Whispering Pines, a funny name since the only thing whispering there are the neighbors gossiping about each other. I keep to myself, grow my corn, fix my tractors, mind my own business. That used to be enough. Until Karen Tillman showed up. Karen was the newly elected HOA president. She drove a bubblegum pink Range Rover, wore mirrored sunglasses, and had that I own everything I see kind of smile. The first time I saw her was a Tuesday afternoon. I was drinking coffee on the porch when she cut across my field like she owned the place. Not a dirt road, not a path just straight through the young corn bouncing over rows like it was some off-road course. It saved her maybe 30 seconds of driving. I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe she got lost. Maybe she was new. I let it go. But then she did it again. And again. Tuesdays and Thursdays, same time. I'd see that pink blur streak through the field and feel my blood boil. That wasn't confusion anymore. That was entitlement. I tried being nice. I went down to the hardware store, bought 4 big red private property, no trespassing signs, even added a little please at the bottom because my mama raised me to stay polite. Spent a Saturday setting them in concrete at the corners of the field. Clear, legal, respectful. The next Tuesday she slowed down when she saw them. I thought maybe it worked. Until she rolled her window down, laughed loud enough for me to hear across the field, and gunned the engine. She swerved right around the signs, crushed another 24 rows, and took off. That's when I knew this wasn't about convenience. It was about power. She wanted to prove she could do whatever she pleased. Pam saw the whole thing from the kitchen window and said quietly, "That woman thinks the world is her doormat." I gritted my teeth. Well, I said some doormats are electrified. I built a gravel lane right along the property line, 8 feet wide, legal, clear as day. I even put up a friendly sign, farm, vehicle crossing. I figured maybe she'd think it was some new shortcut she could pretend was public. I was trying to be reasonable. When I was done, I stood back proud of my work. Problem solved, right, wrong. The next morning, Pam was at the window again, silent. I walked up behind her and froze. 2 fresh tire tracks cutting straight through the center of my field. She had gone out of her way to avoid the new road. Not only ignored it, mocked it. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a neighbor. I was dealing with a bully. I thought about putting up a big steel gate, padlock, chain, end of story. But Pam, she's the brains of this operation, called the county office first. 40 minutes later, she hung up and said, "You're not going to like this, Hank." Turns out the county map shows a 10-foot agricultural access easement. Meant for emergencies, not joyrides, but still, if I locked a gate, I'd be the one breaking the law. It felt like a punch to the gut. Karen had found a loophole and she was exploiting it. She knew that easement tied my hands. I couldn't block her. I couldn't stop her. I felt trapped, angry, helpless. For a minute, I even wondered if maybe I was making too big a deal out of this. Maybe I should just let her win. But Pam looked at me and said something I'll never forget. He said, "You can't block it, Hank." But he didn't say you can't make it unpleasant. That was the spark. A storm was rolling in that night, 3 inches of rain on the forecast. So, while most folks were inside with a cup of tea, I was out on my John Deere tractor headlights cutting through the rain. I wasn't building a wall, I was shaping the land. I used the box blade to gently lower the soil along her usual path just a few inches deeper than the rest. Then, I angled the drainage from both sides straight into that strip. Perfectly legal, just responsible land management. By the time I was done, the ground looked normal enough. But under that thin layer of rainwater was a pit of black, sticky, tire-sucking mud. I went to bed smiling. Next day, bright blue sky, the air fresh after the storm. Pam set up one of our trail cameras on the fence post facing the field. We watched from the kitchen, coffee in hand, waiting. 4 o'clock sharp, the pink Range Rover appeared. She slowed down at the road, looked at my neat gravel lane, then at the open wet field beside it. I could almost hear her thoughts. Shortcuts, faster. She turned the wheel. At first, she made it 10 feet 20 maybe. Then, she stopped. The back tires spun, throwing black mud like fireworks. The whole SUV sank, the front bumper disappearing into the muck. She tried reversing, nothing. Tried forward, worse. Finally, the door opened and one white designer sneaker stepped out and went straight into ankle-deep sludge. Pam was laughing so hard she nearly dropped the coffee mug. "Oh, this is better than TV," she said. Karen stood there screaming into her phone, flailing, covered in mud. Then she called for backup. And that's when things got worse. A rusty old tow truck pulled up, the kind that looked one inspection away from falling apart. The side said Bubba's 24-hour recovery. Out steps a mountain of a man, greasy beard shirt 2 sizes too small. He barely looked at me before saying, "Got a lady stuck in a field." "Yep," I said. "That's my field. You can use that gravel lane to back in. Stay on it, it'll hold the weight." He snorted. "I'll take the direct route." "Sir, that's private property. You drive through there, you'll destroy my crop." But he just smirked and kept walking, dragging his winch cable through the mud. Karen folded her arms and gave me a smug grin. Then the tow truck rumbled forward right into the same muddy stretch. The tires sank immediately, chewing up rows of corn like a blender. I shouted for him to stop, but he didn't. Then I heard it a loud crack, followed by the hiss of water. He'd driven over my irrigation line, 6-inch PVC cleanly shattered. Water gushed out, flooding everything. I ran up to his cab and banged on the door. "Get out of the truck, you're destroying my land." He swung the door open, stepped down, and shoved me hard in the chest. I fell backward into the mud, flat on my back, staring at the sky. That's when something inside me snapped. I got up slow and steady, grabbed the pipe wrench from my belt, and faced him. "You made a big mistake," I said quietly. Pam was already on the porch calling the sheriff, but I knew this was going to end before they arrived. Bubba laughed, took a swing at me. I ducked and rammed my shoulder into his gut. 40 years of hauling hay and fixing engines gave me more strength than he expected. He stumbled, slipped, and went down on one knee. I didn't hit him with the wrench, just jabbed it into his ribs hard enough to make him back off. Then the sirens came. Sheriff's deputies rolled up, lights flashing blue and red across the muddy mess. One look at the scene, 2 trucks stuck me holding a wrench, Karen screaming Bubba covered in sludge, and the deputy just sighed. "All right, folks, that's enough." I dropped the wrench. Pam handed him the tablet with the video footage. Everything was there. Karen ignoring the signs, cutting through the field, Bubba refusing to use the gravel path, shoving me to the ground. The deputy watched it all, then looked around at the damage, the broken pipe, the ruined corn, the flood of water, and said, "Sir, based on this, I'm arresting the driver for assault and property destruction. Ma'am, you're getting cited for criminal trespass." The look on Karen's face could have curdled milk, but that wasn't the end. Pam and I spent the next few days turning evidence into a fortress: photos, measurements, receipts, soil samples, even a lab report proving oil contamination from Bubba's truck. We called it the binder. And when Karen called an emergency HOA meeting to paint herself as the victim, Pam walked in with that binder like a lawyer walking into court. Karen stood in front of the crowd, fake tears in her eyes, talking about how I endangered the neighborhood. Pam didn't interrupt, she just plugged in a projector. First slide, the property map. Bright red line marking where Karen trespassed. Second photo of the big no trespassing signs. Third video, Karen laughing at the sign and driving right past it. The room went dead silent. You could feel the air change. Pam kept going, photos of the gravel lane, the broken irrigation pipe, the invoice for damages. Finally, she ended with the sheriff's report: assault, trespass, environmental contamination. Karen's friends started whispering. Then a neighbor stood up and said, "Last month she fined me $200 because my trash can was out too long. What's the fine for this?" That broke the room. One by one, neighbors stood up complaining about her petty fines and power trips. It turned into a mutiny. By the time the meeting ended, the board voted her out on the spot. But the real victory came in small claims court. Karen tried to defend herself, said I set a trap. The judge flipped through our binder in silence. Photos, receipts, video. Then the insurance report from her own company calling it intentional off-road trespass. The judge finally looked up and said, "You've presented a story, Ms. Tillman. They've presented evidence. Judgment for the Jordans, $7,243.51. Karen didn't say a word. 3 weeks later, a cashier's check arrived in the mail. Her signature right there on the bottom. A month after that, a for sale sign went up in her yard. The pink Range Rover disappeared. I used the settlement money to rebuild what mattered: new irrigation line, fresh soil, and a heavy-duty steel gate with a cattle guard approved by the county. When it closed, it made a clean metallic thud that sounded like peace. I walked the line one evening with Pam, both of us quiet, looking over the field. The earth had scars, sure, but it was healing. So were we. We didn't start this fight, but we finished it. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. A good fence doesn't just keep people out. It lets you rest easy knowing you stood your ground.